2 thumbs up. That's how the traffic stop ended, right after an officer demanded I take off what he was sure were earphones. This one's straight from Reddit, and I'll let the poster tell it. Here's how it went down. It happened this morning, the poster says. He came to a full, complete stop at a 4-way intersection. No rolling through, no shortcuts. So when a police car lit up behind him, he wasn't worried, just confused. He turned his dash cam so it faced both his seat and whoever was about to walk up, then rolled down the window. What seems to be the problem, officer? The way he tells it, the officer looked at him like something scraped off a shoe. You didn't make a complete stop, the officer said. He has hearing aids. Lost most of his hearing years back, touring as a session musician. So naturally, mid-sentence, he reached up to adjust one. Before he could say another word, the officer snapped at him to take off his earphones while he was being spoken to. So he did exactly that. Both hearing aids off, sitting in his palm. Both of them masked, both unable to read lips clearly now. And suddenly he genuinely could not understand a single thing coming out of the officer's mouth. He started signing while speaking out loud at the same time. He's deaf, he said, and he didn't catch whatever was just said to him. Could the officer please communicate in ASL instead? The officer pointed at the hearing aids, which, to be fair, look almost identical to a pair of wireless earbuds, and motioned for him to just put them back in. The poster held his ground. Without those, he said, ASL is the only language he has left. He'd comply with absolutely anything, as long as it came in a form he could actually understand. And this is the part that gets me. The officer's eyes drifted past him, straight to the dash cam pointed square at the both of them. And that's when the whole thing changed. He muttered something under his breath, waved him off, and gave him 2 thumbs up. Just go. The poster says he rolled the window up and drove away as fast as the law allowed, grinning the rest of the day. He's since said he's holding on to that footage carefully, in case he ever gets around to posting it. Okay, that's the poster's story. Now here's my verdict. First, let's see what the jury thought. The top comment was pure dramatic irony. People reading the title and praying out loud that those really were hearing aids, because they already knew how good that would land. Another well-liked reply came from someone who handles workplace disputes professionally, who pointed out that the second you ask an authority figure to put something in writing, or in this case, prove it in a language they can't produce, they suddenly remember the actual rules real fast. And a lot of people zeroed in on the real hinge of the story. The exact second the officer noticed the dash cam is the exact second his whole posture changed. Here's where I land. This entire mess belongs to the officer. He heard hearing aids, saw earbuds, and escalated instead of asking one clarifying question. Then he backed himself into demanding ASL instruction he had no way to give, on camera, over a stop that was never actually a violation to begin with. The comments are right there with me. Nobody in that thread is defending him. He could have de-escalated the moment the hearing aids came off. He chose not to. That's on him, not on the man who stopped completely, told the truth, and happened to have a camera running. So now I want to hear it from you. What's the moment someone in charge demanded compliance from you, and you gave them exactly, precisely what they asked for? Tell me your story in the comments. If you're still with me, you're exactly my kind of juror. Subscribe to be in the room for the next ruling. And a quick like helps more people find the courtroom. Case 2. What would you do if your neighbor snuck onto your property at 2 a.m. with a chainsaw? Not once, but twice. Here's how the poster tells it, in their own words. When my parents bought our house, the lot next door sat close enough that anyone standing in the neighbor's yard could see straight into our kitchen window. It bothered them enough that they spent thousands of dollars on a row of tall, mature plants along the property line just to get some privacy back. A week later, my parents woke up to find every single one of those plants hacked down to stumps overnight. My father stormed over, and the neighbor told him, flat, no apology, that the plants had been on his side of the line, so he'd had every right to remove them. He added a warning. Anything else showed up on his property, and he'd be calling the authorities next time. The poster says my father didn't bother arguing on the spot. He went home, called the landscaping company, and found out the whole job was under warranty, a full replant, no extra charge. This time, my parents measured everything themselves, triple-checked the boundary, and made sure every single plant sat well inside our own yard. And yeah, he came back anyway. A few nights later, my parents caught him outside at 2 a.m, cutting the new plants down all over again, like clockwork. They called the police over the destruction. After the officers talked to him, the neighbor agreed to bring in a licensed surveyor to settle the property line for good. And my father agreed without hesitation, because he genuinely believed he had nothing to hide. A few days later, I got home from somewhere and found bright orange tape strung across the neighbor's yard, marking off a new line. And there it is. His fence wasn't just close to the boundary, it sat 11 full feet onto our property. We stood in our own backyard and watched him tear his fence down piece by piece, furious, with absolutely nothing left to argue. Within a month, we had our privacy back and our plants growing exactly where they belonged. The neighbor lost a quarter of his backyard to the correction, and on top of that, he was ordered to pay almost $10,000 for destroying our property. Twice. Okay, that's the poster story. Now I'm stepping out of the narrator seat, and here's my verdict. First, let's see what the jury thought. The top comment just wanted to tip the surveyor for delivering that orange tape like a banner of victory. Another highly upvoted reply, from someone who's actually worked survey jobs, said there's a real satisfaction in telling a stubborn homeowner their fence has to come down, and that this exact fight plays out more often than people think. A smaller group pointed out the neighbor might not have even built that fence himself. He could have just inherited someone else's mistake when he bought the place. Here's where I land. The neighbor is squarely in the wrong. Not because he was confused about the line, but because his first move, twice, was a chainsaw in the dark instead of a phone call to check the facts. I'll give the dissenters their due. It's entirely possible that fence predates him. But that doesn't excuse destroying someone else's property before ever verifying whose land it was on. And the comments are right there with me on this one. Nobody in that thread is speaking up for him. So here's my question for you. If that were your yard, would you have called the police the first time your plants got chopped down, or waited it out like this family did until it happened twice? Vote in the comments. 1 strike or 2? Case 3. My dog leapt straight up and caught his drone in mid-air like it was nothing more than a chew toy. And that single catch is the moment his whole world started falling apart. Here's how the poster describes it, in their own words. It started with my neighbor getting a new drone. Fine, hobbies are hobbies, but he flew it like the worst possible version of a drone owner. Hovering outside people's windows, chasing cars down the street, just generally being a menace with a joystick. The part that got to me was what he did in my own backyard. My dog is a 70-pound Malamute, and this guy kept flying the drone in low, diving it right over my dog's head before circling back around to do it again. My dog wasn't just annoyed, he was terrified, and I kept picturing what would happen if that thing actually hit him. The poster says they asked, repeatedly, politely at first. Please don't fly over my yard. It's scaring my dog. He laughed in their face and told them to get lost. Calling the police didn't do much either. No real law against it, just an officer asking him nicely to knock it off. And yeah, it kept happening, right up until December, when my dog finally had enough. As the drone dove in for another pass, he jumped, caught it clean out of the air, and tore it apart. Just wires and busted plastic left in the grass. My neighbor was furious. He came storming over, swearing, making threats. I didn't engage. A week later, I had a summons in my hand. He was suing me. $900 for the drone plus another $300 because the wreckage sat in my yard a couple hours before he came to grab it. Apparently that counted as denying him access to his own property. The poster is blunt about this part. That drone could have killed the dog. And the dog isn't a small detail in their life. 7 years together. 3 moves. He was there for college graduation, for the first house, the first new car. This is the one who stuck around through all of it. And now, he's the one being sued over. So the poster went looking for advice. And this is the part that still gets me. Walked into that courtroom completely prepared. The judge wasn't buying the neighbor's theory that the dog had somehow been trained to attack the drone on command. But the poster didn't stop there. They'd brought photos proving there was no way that drone had drifted into the yard by accident, video of the harassment going back months, and every single vet bill from the incident. The x-ray, the sedation to keep the dog calm during it, a full dental repair from a cracked tooth, anti-anxiety medication, a follow-up visit, even soft food for a week while his mouth healed. It all added up. By the end, the neighbor owed close to $2,000. And on top of that, he's now being looked at by the FAA. Turns out the drone was never registered, and he'd been breaking a pile of actual aviation rules. Flying too close to people, too near an airport, way above the legal altitude, and out of his own line of sight the entire time. Okay, that's the poster's story, told the way they told it. Stepping out of the narrator seat now, here's where I land. Before the verdict, one more thing. The poster came back later with an update. The neighbor won't even speak to him now. Sees him outside, gets quiet, goes back inside. The poster's take on that? No great loss. First, let's see what the jury thought. The top comments weren't celebrating so much as warning. Several people flagged that neighbors who lose this kind of dispute sometimes retaliate against the pet directly and urge the poster to keep the dog watched or camera'd whenever he's outside. Another highly upvoted comment came from someone who actually flies drones for a living, making the point that reckless pilots like this one give the whole hobby a bad name, since anyone with basic training knows better than to fly low over people's animals or homes. Here's my verdict. The neighbor is fully in the wrong here, on every layer of this. He harassed a family pet for months after being asked to stop, broke actual FAA regulations doing it, and when the natural consequence finally caught up to him, he tried to turn around and sue the dog's owner for it. That's not misfortune. That's someone refusing to take responsibility. And the comments are right there with me on that. The only real pushback I saw wasn't about who's at fault. It was people making sure the poster protects the dog going forward, which is fair and smart, not a defense of the neighbor. Order in the court. Karma's been served. So here's what I want to know. Vote it out in the comments. Was itemizing every last vet bill, right down to the soft food, fair game after what that dog went through? Or did the poster pad the bill a little too well? Cast your verdict below.